Hello, everyone. Welcome to our April monthly webinar for advisor updates. As you can see on the agenda here, we've got three sections planned today. And I will go ahead and get us started off with our usual updates on advisor. So, again, just little updates about what's going on in the current year. I still plan on adding some new reports for instructional units before the end of the year. Hopefully that could happen in the next month. So when those get added, I'll make sure to put a notice out on the validation website about that. We're also starting to look into 21-22 CRDC. So just a reminder, you will be doing CRDC data reporting 2 years in a row. So we're talking about the reporting that's going to happen next year now. We've spent a little time thinking about what we're going to be doing for that. I believe our goal should be, we want to make a way so that when you look at your reports, that you will be able to export the reports in that CSV file format that CRDC is looking for, so then you can upload your own reports. We are still checking into the technical details of how that could happen, but that's definitely something I think should be our goal. That way everyone doesn't have to wait for me to upload everyone's data. You can manage it yourself. It's going to be our plan. And just a reminder, I believe I've linked this before, but here's the most recent document on this, federal regulations.gov site. If you go to the statement A and download it, this is the document that if you read through it, you'll find a list of some things. Like here, they're talking about elements that they're bringing back. So we're going to see as many of these as we can support with the data we have in Advisor right now, and add those to the reports if needed. But if you want to get a preview of everything that's coming next year, you can follow the link in this document. And we'll have a copy of my slides here put on our data conference website, so you can get access to that if you just want to get directly to the link. Chris asked, will we still upload the data? I think it'll work better if you upload the data. That way each district can kind of go at their own pace. So my plan is, though, if we're going to do that, I will give you the file through Advisor Validation, where you'll literally just download the file, go to the CRDC site, and upload it. But we're still working out some of the details on that, so I will definitely follow up on that here in future meetings. Again, this is a reminder about pandemic EBT uploads. The second round of benefits, we are collecting that data this Friday, April 15th. And so this will be for any data from August all the way through January. And that will go into the next round of benefits that goes out it'll be around May 1st. So there's some lag time of when we get the data versus when the benefits go out. The rest of the stuff on this slide is all about the same. I did want to point out, if you go to the Nutrition Services website, there is now also a frequently asked questions document. So here you go down to the PBT section. Under 21-22 resources, there is a fact there now, as well as a copy of the webinar that Nutrition Services did. All right, so on to the new news. Couple of things to cover again for 22-23 changes coming to Advisor. I think this will be the last of the new changes, at least that's my plan. So after we finalize the stuff I have here today, then I will be getting into the process of finalizing the documentation for the student information system vendors. And I will be getting a test site set up so that they could begin testing within a couple of weeks. So first of all, the new calendar has been posted today. There's really nothing exceptionally new here. I believe everyone should be familiar with the calendar. That is posted on our Advisor Resources website. We're expecting probably within about a week, we will get the new 22-23 course code catalog website updated with all the new course codes and the changes listed for the new year. I'm sure we'll also send a bulletin item out after that comes out, so keep an eye out for that. The next step after that, as far as documentation goes, is we will be doing the tweaks to the data elements guide to include any of this new stuff, as well as any other cleanup that we come up with. So probably before the end of April, we'll hope to get that posted. All right, so then here's just, I'm listing a couple of things. We've talked about these in previous months. I'm not gonna go over them too much. Student Section Association, the temp status, which lets us know for sure when a student has not completed a course. The instructional time planned in the course offering, that is the field we are going to use for calculating instructional units for those courses where that's required, versus right now where it's just estimated based off of your term code. And we talked about the label for disability code 03 is now going to be deaf or hard of hearing, just to keep us up to date with what special ed is doing. So the other big change coming for next year is related to this bill, LB 154. So this bill is fully approved and going into effect. I've got a link here if you want to, see all the history of the bill. But I've got some screenshots here from the slip law, I believe. And I'm highlighting a few things just to point out what changes are going to happen. So this bill says that, starting in 22-23, I should mention this bill is basically like editing the law that kind of sets up collecting data through Advisor, individual student data. And now it's just been edited to include discipline in that data. So obviously, Advisor is already set up to collect individual student discipline data. It's just that there's some changes we need to make to get in line with this new bill. Here I'm just pointing out, basically it says that we're tracking individual student data and that data is going to be reported to the legislature, governor, ESUs, and districts, and will be reported by subgroup. So that is not something we've had in a report before, but certainly since we're tracking individual student data, it's something that we can do. So moving on, here I'm pulling out this clause here. So what kind of discipline data is it looking for? It first is saying any discipline that has these kinds of actions. So in-school suspension, short-term suspension, long-term expulsion, 1 or 2 semester. We already collect all of that data. That's already been required, so nothing changes there. The yellow highlighted section, an assignment to an alternative school or alternative learning program, is not really something we've had a code for. So I'm proposing we will collect this with a new discipline code, or a new discipline action. Here at the bottom, I'm just showing you the discipline code pulled from the our data guidance document. So this is when a student is assigned to an alternative school or program due to a discipline incident. So it's not every student who is going to an alternative program, but this would be specifically due to a discipline incident. Ellie asked, what's the definition of alternative school program? I don't have that exact definition off the top of my head. It could just be an interim program, or I think there are also alternative programs within districts. That is something that we will have to provide some guidance on, because I don't believe the bill explains it specifically. So yeah, that's definitely something that we should, we'll try to include in the data elements guide. As Philip asked, is this alternative placements both in and out of the district? I would have to assume so. It doesn't, it didn't make that distinction. So yes, I assume it could be both in or out. But yeah, that's good questions. Those are definitely something we will, was already on our list as something that we'll have to provide in our guidance. All right, moving down to the green highlighted section. The use of physical intervention with a student or the restraint or seclusion of the student. Some of this lines up with the restraint event field that we have. The restraint event was originally added just for CRDC, but now it would become state reportable. Part of that restraint event item that you submit is a restraint category code, which currently that restraint category code says physical, mechanical, seclusion. All of those really specifically about types of restraint. However, we don't think that the restraint event as it's defined and used in CRDC really covers every kind of physical intervention with a student. I mean, yeah, a restraint is certainly a type of physical intervention, but we felt that physical intervention probably needs to be a separate data point that we collect. And we wanted to, it's a brand new kind of data point, but we wanted to not be very disruptive with how we collect it, meaning I don't want to necessarily create an entirely new field for tracking physical interventions. We just thought that let's make use of the restraint event that we have and just add a new restraint category code that'll say something to the effect of a physical intervention with no restraint. So I know it's kind of a little off. It's a restraint event with no restraint, but we figured this would be the easiest way to collect it without causing a lot of work for everyone. Suzanne asked, would this include students with IEPs? That state student can go to a safe place? I don't assume that, I mean, I don't know exactly about that kind of case, Suzanne, but it sounds like you're describing something that's not a restraint or necessarily a physical intervention. If it's something where the student, I guess it depends on if it's something the student can do under their own power, or I think you know, I would need to know more details about that kind of situation to answer though. But any, you know, in general, all of these fields are things that, you know, that the school staff are doing to the student, basically. Any other questions? Yeah, we've still got more, fortunately. At the bottom here, the restraint category element from the data elements guide, we are just, besides the new code, we'll also be checking that box that says this is now state reporting. Suzanne says, sometimes a student is put into a room by themselves. That could be a seclusion restraint event. We do have some guidance about that, since you know, we basically adopted the guidance from CIDC about the restraint events currently. So that is in our data elements guide right now. So yeah, that is possible. That sounds like that might be you might be describing a restraint event. Any others? All right, now this next section is also a little complicated. So the new restraint category is part of the LB 154 requirement. Yeah, the new, is it restraint category? I forget what it is. Yes, restraint category code would be part of that, as well as the restraint event in whole, because the bill is also asking for anytime a student is restrained or secluded. So the restrained or secluded part already overlaps with the existing CRDC restraint event. And then in addition, there's also physical intervention, which is something new. This next clause here says that all restraints and seclusions, even those not related to a discipline event. I would assume that by definition, this is everything, this is only stuff related to a discipline event. I do not know, I guess, what restraint or seclusion outside of a discipline event looks like. But in general, yes, everything in this, all the changes in this bill are related to discipline collection only. The next little clause here basically says, if you look at the yellow section, the offense constituting grounds for suspension or expulsion, etc., regardless of consequences assigned. So meaning any incident that has certain behaviors, regardless of whether the student was suspended or expelled, is also reportable, is also required to be reported. That's kind of similar to how we've described the discipline data in the past. We've tried to categorize, things as state reportable behaviors or state reportable discipline actions. The structure of this bill fits in with that. And it specifically points to this existing statute that basically defines at the state level what constitutes grounds for suspension, expulsion, etc. And it lists a bunch of categories of behaviors. So I've kind of broken that down point by point here, where on the left is the statute 79-267 there. And on the right, I've got our behavior codes from the data elements guide. So first, use of violence, causing or attempting to cause injury, threatening or intimidating a student, etc. I think these are covered by physical attack, threat of physical attack, and also robbery, I think would all be reportable behaviors here. So far, I think our existing codes are matched up with these. But I did skip a number. So here, number 2, willfully causing or attempting to cause substantial damage to property, stealing or attempting to steal property. We do not have specific behavior codes for that. So I believe we should add probably 2 new behavior codes to track property damage and 1 for theft. So I assume obviously this is stuff that was being collected before, but you probably would have been reporting this under just the other generic behavior code. Now we'll have specific behavior codes for those. Number 5, possessing a weapon, we have that covered. Number 6, unlawful possession, selling, dispensing, or use. A substance, or including alcohol. So drugs or alcohol. This is a little bit tricky. So when we look at our existing behavior codes, the 101 code, drugs excluding tobacco, is actually drugs excluding tobacco and excluding alcohol, if you read the guidance on it, which is the little blue box in the bottom right here. That's because the code we have currently is aligned with what OSEP requires for special ed discipline reporting. For the special ed side, they are specifically looking for drugs but don't care about alcohol, versus the state law statute is looking for drugs and alcohol. So I think probably the simplest way to collect that is we will add a new behavior code that's specifically for possession, selling, dispensing, or use of alcohol. And then we'll combine that with the existing 101 code. Moving on. All right, so still looking at this, the behaviors, number 7, public indecency as defined in this other statute. Oh, Suzanne said we already collect alcohol, we just add your code to the one we have. Yeah, basically, I would guess that there will be some process where you map your existing alcohol code to the new state alcohol code next year. So yeah, again, yeah, I don't think this, I assume this bill is covering everything that it's already kind of done with discipline data. It's just we haven't had codes for collecting all this stuff at the state before. So yeah, public indecency. You know, there's a state statute definition of what that is that we will include, but I think that will have to be another new behavior code on our side. Number 8, engaging in bullying as defined in this statute. And if you go to that statute, it's just a generic definition of bullying. We have a bunch of these bullying codes split up by the reason for the bullying. That's because the 5 codes here are for CRDC reporting. So sex, race, disability, orientation, and religion. So if we really want to collect all kinds of bullying, I think we need a new behavior code for that'll just say something harassment or bullying other, which wouldn't get counted for CRDC, but would get included in any reporting we do for this LB 154. And finally, the last one we need to cover is sexual assault, which we have with sexual assault and rape codes. So we have that one covered. But if I look back, so that's it's 2 behavior codes, 3, 4, 5. So 5 new behavior codes, 1 new restraint category code, and a new discipline code. That's my plan for how we're going to cover everything in the data collection of the bill for now. The last things I wanted to show here, I don't think we'll need to collect different fields, but I just wanted to point out that they have a clause that says we must report any act resulting in law enforcement involvement. And they use different language than we do. They, talk about an on-site school resource officer. We already have this referral to law enforcement indicator field, which is already on the discipline data right now. It uses kind of different language, but I think we may just kind of update the guidance on it to make sure it aligns with the bill. But I think this existing field will cover that. And as you see, that existing field's already been marked as state reporting. Same here in this clause. Basically, it's all about school-related citation or arrest. I think we'll use the school-related arrest indicator. We, again, will probably update the guidance to make sure everything is in alignment. All right, everyone. As quickly, if you have any other questions, let me know. That's everything I was planning on covering today. And then in a minute here, we'll switch over to Lexi to talk about career ed. Philip asked about the slides. Yeah, the slides will be available. I'm always getting them done like the day before. We will get them posted here on the data conference website at the top in the April webinar section. So probably within a day or two, we'll get it posted there. All right. Last chance. Okay, we're going to switch over to Lexi Neiman now, who is from our career ed department.
Thanks, Max. Okay, so I am Lexi Neiman. I am the new Career and Technical Education Data Specialist. And so today, kind of an overview of what I'm going to talk about is listed here. If you have any other questions that come up maybe down the road as you're kind of digging more into the data or state reporting in a couple months for those in secondary, please feel free to reach out to me. And then as well as Max's slides, these slides will also be available at the end of this presentation. So before we kind of delve into different reports, I kind of want to go through a little review of what is actually collected for Perkins, because when we adapted Perkins 5 from Perkins 4, it changed the definition of a concentrator. So a concentrator is no longer considered just a senior. It's actually, for secondary, it's actually considered to be anybody who's in grades 9 through 12 that has earned credit in either an intermediate or capstone level or 2 intermediate level courses. So that's kind of a big difference as you're going through data, that if your participation counts look different from sort of what the past years have been, that's probably because the definition changed last year. So the way that we hold Perkins accountability data has adapted from that definition. As well as a lot of the things that I'll go more in depth on, because there are certain indicators that are reported only for those who are in their reported graduating year. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. So the first thing I want to give sort of a snapshot on when it comes to reporting is talking about state determined levels of performance. And this is what we have for the next 5 years. So now we're in the 3rd year of it, and we're kind of looking forward to 2022. So when we report in June, those in the black triangle or square, will be what those markers will be. But when you look at data that was reported for last year, that's more in this pink reddish square. So kind of moving forward would be the black, and then looking back would be the red. And then for post-secondary, these would be the same. And this link will actually give you your Perkins report card for both post-secondary and secondary. So you'll be able to see sort of where you matched up with these levels of performances. And if you are involved in a consortium at that level, it will also give district level through there as well. So, and you can find those at any time, and they're updated once a year. So to give sort of more in-depth look at those report cards, these are 5 highlighted reports that I'll kind of go and touch in on a little bit more through this presentation, starting with the programs of study courses, because that is what I would recommend being the first report that you would go into to verify career technical education data, because more likely than not, programs of study will give you course coding errors, which is 9 times out of 10 where those discrepancies lie. So that'll be the next slide, but then these last 4 will actually be other data verification records that you can go through. And then also, as you're working with your Perkins staff, or if you do both data collection and Perkins, those are the reports that you would do to write the narrative and do other revision refresh pieces of Perkins. So to kind of get a grasp on programs of study, both for this current year, coming year, but then also in the 2023 as we implement the new course standards, those can be found on this website right here. That will be able to give you also changes to course coding that will be implemented in 2023. So looking ahead as to sort of what might be up the pike on changes to those. Like I said before, in a concentrator definition, the introduction to intermediate to capstone courses, this is kind of where you look at to develop who is a concentrator and who's not a concentrator, or who will become a concentrator. So it's important to look at the ands and the ors to also be able to see how that definition lies, because if it's or, you would need to just have either animal biology or animal science. But if it's and, so you would need to have animal science and plant science or horticulture. So it's important to, when looking at this or talking through data, to go back and see what actually is the qualifications for those. And this is actually a snippet of a PDF that you can find at this link that actually will go through, and it's a 2-page document that'll go through and show you precisely how to go into Advisor to verify programs of study reports to see if there's possible errors and how to find solutions to those. So I recommend starting at this point and moving forward, and also being able to disperse this out to your teachers or counselors that would be able to actually get a better understanding of the courses that they teach and how it could better be coded in the system. And then moving to the indicators, this is a link that will provide the definitions for how the data is calculated. So it'll give you the precise definition of the numerator and denominator for every indicator, both at the secondary and post-secondary level. I highly recommend reviewing it. And then also in the Perkins Management Guide, which at the end of my presentation, I will also drop a link to that as well, because I don't think it's in this presentation, for you to go in, and that'll actually give more in-depth as well to the indicators and how the data is collected from there as well. So that's a good checkpoint if you're looking at a report and you just don't quite understand why the numbers aren't matching to what you think they are. Re-looking at the definitions is probably a good starting place for that. Because I think that one of my main questions I always get from data stewards is understanding at the secondary level the 1S1 versus the 3S1, because it's actually 2 groups of students, but those students will be reported for both indicators. It's just over a 2-year reporting period. So a student would start as a concentrator who graduated in their reporting year as a 1S1 indicator. Then after that, the second quarter, so basically reporting in June, and then that sort of, we give them about 6 months to find what their next step is. We report that next year and they become the 3S1 indicator. So it's sort of kind of broken up between 2 years, but they will be, that indicator will be reported by that concentrator for 2 years. So that kind of gives a better understanding of where those numbers come from and how to look at that, and how to be able to verify those reports, especially in the coming months when we get ready to report in June. The post-school survey list will actually give you the list of concentrators that are set to have already graduated, so last May, that are set to be a part of the 3S1 indicator for this reporting year. And the 2 below, the postgraduate activity and the students missing from the postgraduate activity, will be able to give you kind of a more detailed understanding, especially for larger districts, as to what the count for that would look like. So I recommend going through that prior to the June reporting, just to get a grasp to see where that will land for those students that need follow-up surveys. And the Perkins non-traditional indicator for both post-secondary and secondary, so 4S1 at the secondary level and 3P1 at the post-secondary level, have had some updates to how those programs and cluster codes are implemented, we added 3 new career clusters into the non-traditional programs. So you'll find that your data will have more programs in the non-traditional indicator. So hopefully when looking at data for this next year, we'll see an increase in what that level looks like. And the bar graphs below actually show that these were the indicators that we as a state did the worst on, to be able to kind of move forward looking at data collections to see if we can sort of fix if that's data reporting versus if it's actual student performance. So that's just something in forward thinking to look at when collecting data for this next year and then reporting it for this year. Another big conversation that has been happening over the last few months is work-based learning. So at the secondary level, it would be the 5S3 indicator. We actually have just updated the crosswalk to have work-based learning coded as a capstone course. So for those that needed to find a solution to not using, their system doesn't allow 2 state course codes, this would be able to still keep your concentrator in that career cluster, as well as being able to report them for participating in work-based learning. Another thing that we get asked a lot, but is a lot of Therese Marzouk's work, is what is considered work-based learning. And that's actually something that we allow as the discretion of that district to find the definition of. But this link will give you at the bottom a guide to how to define work-based learning and best practices to implementing work-based learning. And I highly recommend also contacting Therese as somebody who can answer a lot of those questions and defining it to best be able to accurately report work-based learning. Something else that is of note for work-based learning, in the beginning when I talked about concentrators are no longer considered seniors. However, when they're reported for the 5S3 category, that isn't until they are becoming a graduate that year. So if they're graduating in that reporting year, that is when they will actually be considered into the 5S3 indicator as a concentrator. So if a student participated in work-based learning as a junior and became a concentrator as a junior, they wouldn't actually be counted towards the 5S3 indicator until that next year when they would be in that reporting graduate year. So that's something else when looking at it, to see if you have a lot of students that have already participated in work-based learning, but they have not yet graduated or haven't entered that reported year yet, you'll see that that will change data from the next report year. And in looking at reports to kind of give a snapshot, and I recommend sending this out to those that work with Perkins that maybe aren't necessarily in the weeds of data, to get sort of a bigger picture scope of what they're looking at. So this is an indicator trend report. So you can see that it goes over a 3-year trend. It kind of has this stoplight model and understanding the green, yellow, pink, kind of red, depending on what format you use, in where the goal was met or below the state goal or within the 10% of the state goal. So red obviously meaning that, red, pink obviously meaning that it did not meet the 10% within the state goal. The yellow meaning that it was below the state goal, but still within the 10%. So for those that write improvement plans for Perkins, would necessarily need to write one for the yellow, but it's something to make of note for that next year to pay attention to that trend line. And green obviously meaning that they were at or above the state goal. If you were to look to the left side of the trend report, you will see that it also separates out by special population, race, ethnicity, and gender. So it's important too to be able to kind of indicate where the marker is missed. So you'll notice that in the male gender category, it's all red across the board for the last 3 years. This is also in looking at the 3P1 non-traditional program concentrator. So you'll find that more non-traditional programs are geared towards females. So it's finding creative ways to integrate male gender non-traditional programs into that to be able to raise those goals over the course of the year. So it's a good indication of being able to see sort of narrowing where the indicator was missed to move forward and how to combat those. So that is something I would recommend giving out to those that work with Perkins that isn't necessarily data driven. If there's something that's really important to see where there's a discrepancy from, I recommend the indicator report. So this will actually give raw student counts to what each subgroup was, the numerator and denominator down by student count. So you'll notice that there was 27,811 total concentrators in the state of Nebraska. And of that, 12,794 of them were a part of the 4-year cohort. So we're set to graduate. And 11,884 of them actually graduated. So that is where we get the 92.8% graduation rate for secondary concentrators in the state of Nebraska. So it kind of gives sort of a really good understanding of what students were enrolled where and what their subgroup type is. Because if you were to extend this out, which I haven't listed here, next to the all clusters up here, you'll see that it goes and breaks down to each career cluster. So you'd be able to see who in AFNR graduated and who was supposed to graduate. And you'd be able to narrow it down by career cluster to get a better, more narrow look at graduation rates, non-traditional programs, any indicator that you would want to be able to see sort of what programs are struggling or what need a little bit more focus and attention on. So like I said before, course coding is 9 times out of 10 where there's issues in data reporting. So I recommend this website. It's a better replacement to the Excel document that you have to look through to list through to find course documents. It has everything listed and you can just search through checking career education as the subject line and typing it in. As well as this is listed at the top. This gives an overview of any updates and changes that may have occurred. And I recommend looking that in the next couple of months as the changes from this year have been finalized and will be implemented here shortly. So that's just something that I would have teachers or admin kind of go through and check their own courses to see if it's coded correctly and what would be accurate for that. This would be a good tool to share out to anybody who needs to check course codes, as well as clearing endorsements to see those who might be able to teach in an endorsed area that they're unfamiliar with because they weren't sure who was endorsed in that area to be able to teach that. A lot of that is work-based learning endorsements. Again, Therese Marzouk is a good person to talk to also about what going about to get that endorsement looks like and the process to go through from that. These are important dates and deadlines to be aware of, especially for those in the secondary level, just in the upcoming months as accountability data is due June 15th with our audit window of the 15th through the 30th. And I highly recommend even before June 15th going on and pulling data just to verify to see if it's accurate or if there's something that looks off, being able to catch it before the window even opens is also something I highly recommend. But during those 2-week times is the perfect time to go through, look, get back to us to see if there's anything that you see that looks off or might be unclear on how to report. That's the best way to be able to verify that, because once June 30th comes and the data is finalized, there's only very catastrophic circumstances to where data would be able to change after that point. So I highly recommend using the secondary data window in the upcoming months to be able to check and verify data from there. And then obviously the October months too for post-secondary. Something else that is a good resource is being able to ask the help desk questions, specifically those if you have maybe questions about the Power School system or Infinite Campus. Advisor Naomi is rock star about getting back to you quickly. So I would also recommend talking to the help desk as well for any questions that you might have. And these are two links that I would recommend going through to see ahead of time to get a better understanding of how to report out CTE level data. And as far as technical assistance for Perkins in the future, we still hold Perkins office hours for one more Tuesday for the year, as well as we have a Perkins technical assistance meeting, the PTAM on April 21st. So there's two different sessions. You only need to attend one. The information is the same for both, but I highly recommend passing that on to your other Perkins folks or attending either one of those to be able to get more information, not just data, but Perkins as a whole, or any questions that will come up in the upcoming weeks as you write the narrative and do other budgetary reasons for Perkins. So this is also my contact information if you need anything from there, as well as just any more information that would come up from there. With that.
Yeah, if anyone has any more questions, please pop them in the Q&A window. I answered one while you were talking.
Okay, I can't see the report.
Yeah, you'll have to pull it down from the Zoom menu while you're there. We had asked that the reports have changed since last July. We have put out some fixes in those reports. So they have changed, but we believe the numbers now, that is also what we reported federally, are the correct numbers.
What would be like a course coding issue if it didn't match up? Probably would be, I would be the first point of contact. So if you see something, then we can talk through it from there as well. And if there's something that looks a little off that I can't answer, it would probably go to the data team actually, and Max and his team would be able to see more on the back end what that would look like. And also the career field specialists, depending on what the course would also be a good point of resource to be able to tell you more about course codes, what would work, what doesn't, and if there was any problems there.
And Leo's asking, do data stewards get notified? I mean, we don't put a notification out about every report fix that goes out. But yeah, I mean, if we have something like that happen while the data is still being collected, it's definitely something we, at a minimum, I could notify through the advisor validation website or through a bulletin. But of course, in this case, we were actually fixing reports after the data collection was already done.
When teachers can use the course coding lookup to make sure that what their courses that they're teaching match what that course should be. So a lot of times when I talk to teachers in their districts, they see that the qualifications of what that course is could actually be coded as something else. So it's being able to see what course code fits best with the standard of what they're teaching. So, and teachers know that best. So that's why I would say that using that as a tool for teachers would help them better understand if their course codes match what it is that they're teaching. And again, if any other questions come up throughout the process, or even through that 2-week data window in June, please feel free to reach out with questions, and I'm happy to answer them or find the answer for you as best as I can and as quickly as I can to be able to ensure that everything is accurate before the finalization of the data.
All right. Hopefully everybody can see the PowerPoint that I have for today. My name is Clayton Watt. I'm the Director of Educator Certification, and there's just some things that I would like to go through on the presentation here. First thing is just an overview of what certification is, how we've gone through and modernized the system a little bit from what it used to be, any upcoming changes that we have, and then how I can ask you to help us. And then the last thing is, how do you contact us? Those are all important things that I'm going to go through. And then if there's questions, I imagine that those are typed in the chat somewhere along the line or whatever protocol you have, but I would be happy to answer your questions too as we go through this. Just a quick overview. I'm going to go through this really quick, but Teach has been around since February of 2020, and we've done some things since then that have made the system even better. The one thing that we did do was that in April of 2020, the service desk started, the same service desk that answers your advisor questions started answering or started collecting a lot of our emails and voicemails, and have now gotten to the point where they started answering some of our level 1 questions. Level 1 questions are the ones that, like, how do I apply? How do I change my password? And some of those things. So they've been creating service desk tickets for people who call in or email our office email address, our nde.tcertweb email address. So that all happened in April of 2020 in an effort to make communications better. And I think every day we get a little bit better at making that work for everyone. In May of 2020, we added the business partner portal for the colleges. So instead of getting forms through faxes or emails, we now get them electronically directly from the college. And then in March of 2021, we added the business partner portal for the district, which makes it so that you can follow the application process from start to finish, see a preview of a certificate and just some information on the folks who are identified as staff members in your school. And then just a couple odd things. We moved our office in March of 2021, which you wouldn't think would be a big deal, but for us, we probably lost a week. We had to pack up all of our microfiche and move them to the other location, or at least move them to storage. So in summer of 2021, we kind of talked about what's a plan going forward on how we're going to communicate with people. And just so you know, we certify anywhere between 12 and 15,000 people a year. And at the time when we started developing it, there were 5 people who worked in our office, and then we had some help from the service desk too. So if you do the math, the quick math, you know, in your classroom, I'm sure you don't have that sort of ratio from teacher to student, but we had a lot of questions that we were trying to answer, and really not necessarily having the staff to answer them as quickly as we wanted to. So we did decide in the fall of 2021 that we needed to add some more staff members and to increase our capacity in order to reduce the amount of time it takes to have a first contact on an application and answer questions that people may have. So in that effort, we did decide to hire 5 people. We hired an assistant director position, which we had at one time, but now we have that position. Again, we went without it for a year. And then we went to the idea that we were going to hire a couple more analysts, which we did in January this year, and also hire a couple more folks to work exclusively with certification questions at the service desk, which we have also done that too. So all of those positions have been filled. Our assistant director is going to start in June. As soon as they start, then we can get them trained and start working on some of the training. We do have some just other things that have happened. We have some of the commissioner's guidance on substitute permit portability that took place this year. Kind of just changed our perspective on how we issue substitute permits. And then we have some quarterly goals that we're trying to meet, or quarterly, just some quarterly items we're trying to highlight. In Q1 of 2022, which has passed now, our main objective was to prioritize any renewals or local sub permits A lot of the renewals that we did in the first quarter of 2022 were really short form renewals, which means people aren't making any changes. They're just renewing based on experience. And then we're moving into, or we're in quarter two already. And right now we're trying to prioritize folks who are adding endorsements or are May graduates. So we have several of our May graduates who have already applied for their certificate. Just a quick overview of what we've come from and where we are now. The old teacher certification system, it was an online application. We relied a lot on faxes and emails to get our forms. Pretty labor intensive. We had to scan pretty much any item that came in and attach it to a file. And we were all in an office setting, so it was a little bit different on how you got a hold of us. Now we all have cell phones that we don't forward calls to each other. And the office setting was a little bit different. With the new TEACH system, and TEACH is an acronym, the Educator Application and Certification Hub, we have an application system that's still online, but we've added a dashboard so that people can kind of take ownership of their own certification information. On your dashboard, people would be able to see their experience, how the school reported them, as a teacher, as an administrator, as a special ed teacher, as a, whatever code you give them. And they can look at any certificate they've ever had, along with their endorsements, where they got them from, where they went to college. And if they have an application in the system, it also gives them a checklist and any list of deficiencies that we may have for them to still complete. And sometimes they can complete those deficiencies right on the dashboard and communicate with us through the dashboard. So the dashboard does a lot of things that we've never had before. So that's new to some folks. And just so you know, the rollout of TEACH is a 5-year rollout for most people, because their certificate only expires once every 5 years. So we're kind of in year 3 now. So we still have quite a few people who have never logged into the dashboard. Probably about 20% of the state who have certified, people who are certified in the state have never logged into TEACH to even see the dashboard. Again, that's part of our communication plan, is to get to those folks. The college portal, the business partner portal for the college or the institutions, that's new. Like I said, we used to get a lot of things through faxes and emails. Now they just go click, 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 and then it's done. So they can complete a form fairly quickly for us. And then the district partner portal is something that a lot of districts have access to. It allows them to see the application process from start to finish. You get to see the same deficiencies. You get to see the analyst's name and their contact information. And then just be able to be very informed on where someone is in their application process. We have quite a few districts who have taken advantage of that and do follow that process. And they ask really good questions when they call in to say, I see they're missing this. What do they have to do? Let's get them going on this so we can get them certified. Everything is web-based, which is great. When COVID hit, our old system was not web-based. This one is. We just log into a secure website. And we've integrated some of the transcript information and some of the testing information into this system. So it comes directly from our vendor. So if you send a transcript through Parchment, which a lot of our colleges send information through Parchment, it actually comes in automatically every 4 hours into our system. And as long as we have a last 4 digits of the social security number and a birth date to match it to, those transcripts move right into their file, as long as someone has registered for the system. Same thing with test scores too. We've run into a couple things with test scores. ETS doesn't require any sort of social security numbers, so sometimes we have to go hunt down test scores. But for the most part, it works fairly well. If you haven't seen the applicant dashboard, here are some highlights. The application process, if someone has one, we've kind of gone to this circle approach of looking at, where am I in the process? If you have 2 green circles here, it means that we've received your application and you've submitted it. Green is good. Red means there's some things that we're missing that we need some more information on. It's a deficiency. So this person, I'm their analyst because their name is right underneath it and my contact information is right underneath it. And there's a red circle, which means I needed something. So they're actually going to have a little box over here that says this is a deficiency. And this is what I need you to do. And if there's a way for them to resolve it, they just click the resolve button. By the way, when we send out communication with an applicant, we send them a text message to tell them that there's a secure message online. We send them an email with that message in it. And then we also send them, they will also get They can see the message online, they get a text message, and then they get the email. They can also see the message that we sent them right on the dashboard. So there's a couple different ways that we try to send that out so people can see that it's there. So that, just like I said there, we rely a lot on text messages and emails going back and forth so that we can get somebody certified. And then the last thing we have here on the dashboard is a checklist. So if someone does have an application, there's a checklist that says this is what we still need. Please note that the checklist is a generic checklist for the application type, and it changes once an analyst is assigned. If there's no name here underneath, if there's no name underneath the circles here, that means we haven't looked at that application yet, which means you're going to have a ton of things in your checklist that are red X's. Those don't change until someone actually reviews your application, which it says right here in this paragraph, right above the checklist. And then the BPP, the district BP, the business partner portal, that's what BPP stands for. That's something that's been out for over a year now and allows districts to see the application process from start to finish. They see the same circles. They see the same information on who the analyst is. They seem to see the same deficiency information that that the applicant sees. They don't see the communications. That'd be the one thing we don't put out there. But it does allow them to see anything that's in these tabs. So personal information, there's address. We mask the social security number. You can see their address, their former names that they've told us that they had. Any of their academic information, where they went to college, if they completed a program. You can click on the experience tab and it'll tell you where they've been. In Nebraska, outside Nebraska, we don't track that, but inside Nebraska we do. Whether they've met the special education and the human relations requirement. If they have an application in the system, when they applied, the circles, the deficiencies. And then if you click on certificates and permits, you can actually hit a preview button and see the preview of their certificate or permit. A lot of this information is useful to districts. They can go in and just kind of track. You have a new hire, they add your district on the dashboard to say that you have permission to see their information. You can watch the certification process from start to finish. A couple things we've added in the business partner portal. We've added some reports. One of the reports, it kind of shows you the people who have registered for the system. Those are the people that we communicate with. The people who haven't registered for the system is another report. Those are people we don't communicate with. If they haven't registered for the new system, we really have no way of knowing an email address or a phone number that we can send a text message to, reminding them that they need to renew their certificate. These reports are helpful for districts. A lot of people have said that these are great reports to have so they can keep people certified. They can get them renewed in a timely manner. Just know that if your certificate expires on 8/31, 2022, which a lot of them do, you can apply as early as 1/1/2022. So as long as you renew it in the same year, anytime during that year. We've had that big push to get everybody in Q1 to try to get those renewals into the system so that they're not sitting there in June and July thinking, I think I need to get that. Superintendent letter came out today and they said, make sure that we have an updated copy of the certificate. And some people go, oh, shoot, I forgot to do that. They've registered for the system. They're going to get an email or a text from us every 15 days until they actually renew the certificate. Kind of replaces the one-time postcard we used to do. This is a 15-day reminder text message and email to say, hey, you need to get in and get your certificate renewed. And then we give some instructions on how to do it. A couple other reports we've talked about adding to this is one of the reports in particular that districts have asked us for is a list of all their certified certificated employees and all the endorsements that they have. So we're working with our vendor on getting that out. We've had a couple things we need to work on before that, but we've talked to them about that. Upcoming changes, again, we're still training some of our staff. We hired an assistant director. We have 2 service desk specialists, Heather and Tammy, work at the service desk. They answer a lot of questions at that level 1, and then they push the questions that they can't answer off to us for us to answer. Those are all service desk tickets and support tickets. We have a communication plan that we've started, we've talked about and worked through some of the things on it. One of those is creating a new user-friendly or more user-friendly website to find things. We're still adding content to that. Some of the things we haven't added is because we know that the legislature's in session right now, and there's a couple things that may change them. So we're just kind of holding off a little bit on some of those items. And we talked about adding some instructional videos. We're still in the process of doing that. We really want everybody to register for Teach. We've had a fairly decent push trying to get those folks out. At the beginning of the year, we were less than 60% of all certified folks in the state as were registered for Teach, and now we're above 80%. So we just have, several thousand more people to register, and then we're going to get closer to that 100%. And then we've targeted emails and text to folks to let them know that they need to renew. And we've also asked administrators to do the same thing. Go run that report that says these folks haven't registered. These folks have a certificate that's going to expire in 2022. Those are the people that you should be talking to at the district saying, did you know your certificate expires? You really need to get that done. It's kind of some upcoming changes that we have. We're going to, again, try to add some new features to the BPP district. We'll send out a targeted email message to all superintendents at the beginning of July. In that email, we'll also have some information on conditional permits for the fall. If you have anyone who needs a conditional permit. In that email will also be some information that says we're going to reset everybody's password in the BPP, just because superintendents move around a little bit, and when they do, we really don't want them to have access to the wrong district, so they just need to register again. So we'll reset everybody's password, and people who need access will reset their password, and the people who don't just won't be able to. The BPP College, we're looking at adding some notes and some different things to them, and so that they can communicate with us a little bit better. So we're in the process of kind of getting that done. I think the notes part is finished, and we're able to look at some of the forms right now that they complete. And then we continue to work with our vendor on enhancements and bugs. So that's a process. And then we have some Rule 21 and 24 updates that are out there. Rule 24 is currently at the governor's office, I believe, and we're waiting for that one. And Rule 21 is kind of on hold until the legislature finishes the session, just because there may be some changes we need to make in that. All right, what can districts do to help? So please, if you have access to the BPP and you have access to that report that says who's registered, who's not registered, whose certificate expires this year, just run those reports and kindly give them a gentle reminder that it'd be great for them to register. Even if their certificate doesn't expire until 2026, everybody needs to register for the system. So that would be wonderful. Right now we have 81.2% of all the certified staff that we know of in the state have registered for Teach, which is great. Again, we're on year 3. That number probably should be closer to 60, but we want to get everybody in there so that we can send them reminder messages. Again, we send those reminder messages every 15 days starting December 15th. So I think I said starting in January, but we actually kicked it back. We're December 15th now. We start our first one. And then use the BPP district. There's a lot of great information on there. If you don't have access to it, your superintendent can receive an email from me on how to get onto that and how to register. You can kindly ask your superintendent if that's something that they want you to be in. The district needs to give people permission to be on that. That's not something you can call us and request access to the BPP district. It's one of those things where the district needs to kind of monitor who they give that access to. So talk to your superintendent if you're interested in that. How do you contact us? There's a lot of information on this slide, but I have a feeling this presentation is going to be out there for you to see. Best way is the email, the nde.tcertweb@nebraska.gov email address. That's the best way to contact us. A support ticket is created, and once a support ticket is created, it's either the level 1 folks, Tammy and Heather answering your question, or it gets pushed up to level 2 and an analyst is answering your question. Voicemail, you can leave a voicemail. If you call our main line, that's what you're going to get. It's a voicemail line only. You can leave a voicemail. It takes a little bit longer possibly to answer those questions just because we have to transcribe the voicemail. So if you have an email, that'd be best. On our website, there's a contact us link. and you can type right on there and it'll email it directly to us too. Our goal is to respond to those tickets within 48 hours. Right now, we're kind of at that 48 hours, but that's kind of an ebb and flow right now until we kind of get everything worked out and all the staff trained, until we get all of our staff in there and in place. 48 hours is our goal, and we have not consistently been able to stick at that 48 hours, but we're getting closer to it. Also, one thing is, please note that the dashboard shows the same information that someone's going to provide you over the phone. We're just going to look at that. So if you call me and say, hey, Susanna's my analyst, and I'd really like to know what else I need to do, Susanna's probably already sent a deficiency notice to say, hey, this is what we need. And that's probably what I'm going to look at because I'm not familiar with your application. So if you look at your dashboard, also note that once somebody sends a deficiency and you send something to us right away, it's not real time. We get that information and then we have to get back to your application and review it again. So give us a little bit of time before you call us or contact us so we can get back to your application again. It usually takes us anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks for an application to be assigned and processed. Our goal is to get to 2 weeks. Right now, I believe our goal is to get to 2 weeks. We've not realized that goal yet. Right now, we're sitting at exactly 5 weeks for first contact on an application. And again, once we get staff trained, our goal is to get down to that 2 weeks. If an analyst has been assigned, their contact information is right on the website or right on the dashboard. So just contact them directly, and they know the most about your information. The one thing I'll say, and Naomi would tell you the same thing, is please don't send multiple emails or multiple voicemails or contact multiple people. That does not speed up the process, actually slows us down. We have to merge all of those support tickets into one and create all those support tickets for multiple contacts. So one time really gets it done, and then we'll just go through that one support ticket. All right. I don't know if you have any questions, but now it's time for questions.
I actually do.
Okay.
So Clayton, you got some good ones through the Q&A. I typed answers to a couple of them. Someone asked about how to get access to the BPP, and you indicated contact your superintendent, so that was great. Another question was specific to a staff member who needed to get an endorsement added and had some delays related to that. So I said to send us an email at nde.tcertweb@nebraska.gov. That's the best way to kind of start that conversation if they're not already assigned an analyst. This last question, I think you may have addressed, but I'll go ahead and say it again. Should I be able to see the deficiency for a staff member through the BPP?
You should be able to. You should be able to see the deficiencies. If the deficiency doesn't show up, sometimes there's a deficiency like we've given them information on, you need to send us a transcript. You can't resolve that through the business part. You can't resolve that through your dashboard. You actually have to contact the college and have an official one sent. You should see them. I will say this: we just moved to Teach just moved to a different server, and things are being handled a little bit differently on the experience side of things. And some of our data is stored locally at our vendor now instead of being pushed from the department every time you click on it. So there may be some different delays in actually viewing that deficiency. So I'm not going to say count to 10, but just give the screen a little bit of time to populate. And if it becomes an issue where you can't see it, just send a ticket in or send an email off to our office email address. And then we can let our vendor know that you're not able to see that deficiency if one's there.
Okay, does the Diocese of Lincoln have the capability to use the BPP yet?
They have the capability to get access to a single system. So a single school, but do not have access to have multiple districts under one master account, because every school is a separate district in our eyes, because they all have separate district, county and district numbers. So they're all seen as different districts or different systems. So no, not yet, but it is on the list of things to fix. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the same struggle with them submitting other data as well. So it's a question that's percolating in many people's minds over here at NDE. Another question: is there a report to run to see all of your teachers' endorsements? Example, so I can see who all of our teachers that have a math endorsement are.
No, but it's on the list. So it's on the list of, that's one of the reports that we've asked our vendor to create. That actually came out of ESU2. I was at an ESU2 meeting with superintendents. They said, you know what would be really handy would be a report that shows that. ESU16 asked the same thing. So it's definitely one of those things that we're interested in adding because that's what our districts asked us for. So. Any other
That's it
questions?
for now, yeah, unless anybody else wants the last minute.
All right, my contact information is on the screen. I have no idea who the audience is here today or what your role is, but there's my information. Again, if you already have a help desk ticket in or a service desk ticket in, let the service desk ticketing process take place first. And if you don't hear from us, then my number's on the screen or my email address is on the screen. I'll answer as many questions as I can that way. But going through the service desk ticketing system is actually really helpful for us, because then we can make a list of the types of items that we're being asked multiple times. And then it tells us, hey, we really need to get something on the website that says this, because this answer, we've been asked this question 14 times today. Or, you know, we need to put this in the FAQ. We need to, you know, add some instructions to our application. Or so we use that data on this at the service desk, every ticket that comes in, to kind of figure out what aren't we still answering very well on our website so that people can self-help. So the more things that go through the service desk and get a support ticket, the better for us, because it makes us better. So that's why we're trying to give that push of a single point of contact for folks.
Awesome, thank you, Clayton.
Yep.
I guess I have one last slide just to give us a preview of what's coming up next, guys, and then you'll be free to go. I'm just going to skip the main slide here and just give you the preview for what's coming May 11th. We're going to have PEBT, Jenna, again from Nutrition Services, is going to come on back and present to us again. The advisor year-end reporting workday presentation will be made to the data webinar audience on May 11th. So that'll be good to have some of that information before we really get into the nitty-gritty of year-end reporting. And then we're actually going to have a pre-recorded presentation on FERPA. So that'll be available actually here pretty soon on the data webinar website, which again is nedataconference.com. And of course, it's the second Wednesday of every month. Registration is required. As mentioned down here, we will not have a data webinar in June, but we will be back in July. More topics to come. And I think that's it. So thanks, everybody.